This is Threads, and I'm Khalid Sasa, and today we're going to talk about the Canadian election that happened yesterday. Mark Carney's Liberal Party won a minority government. This is an ideal scenario. A minority government is forced to work with others. We've seen before when the NDP had influence over the Liberal Party's minority government, they forced a Palestine vote. Perhaps this is something we can see again, but also on other issues aside from Palestine, hopefully the Liberals will be held to account. Now I want to talk about the crazy shift that we've seen from the polls in December when Trudeau was still leader of the Liberal Party, and how in just a few months things have turned around. In December 2024, polls showed the Conservatives, if there was to be an election right then and there, would win with 45% of the vote share. The NDP second with 21%, the Liberals third place with 16% of the vote share. Fast forward to April, just a few months, and today we woke up with these election results. 43.5% Liberal, up from just 16. The NDP was decimated in this election, and that's what we're going to focus on in this podcast. In yesterday's election, the NDP lost official party status. Jagmeet Singh lost his seat. What went wrong? Why was the NDP so humiliated? Was it because Mark Carney is such a great leader? Was it because of Donald Trump making threats to annex Canada? Or was it because of his own policies and the NDP's failure to appeal and to attract voters? Probably a bit of a mix of everything, but I'd say the latter is the biggest reason. The NDP tried to play the Liberal game to a point where they became exactly like the Liberal Party. Tell me what was even unique about the NDP's platform. What did they provide? If you can think at the top of your head, that stood out as an alternative. Why would someone who's scared of potentially Poilievre coming to power go out of their way and risk splitting the vote if there is nothing that is special and standing out? There is nothing worth that risk to vote for the NDP. Did the NDP commit to providing free university education if elected, withdrawing from NATO, demilitarization? Did they offer something unique like pushing forward to joining the European Union, as we've seen discussions and reports on that, even though people say it's not very realistic? Did we see talk of ending military contracts for oppressive regimes, not just the Israeli one, but those that are complicit in the genocide in Yemen of Tamil Elam? Canada spending $400 billion on contracts for Lockheed Martin. That includes F-35 warplanes and the Type 26 warships. While Jagmeet mentioned ending the F-35 contract, what about the Type 26 ships? $306 billion on that can be used for many other things that the NDP doesn't even seem to care to ponder. So in the end, what did the NDP commit to that's different than the Liberal Party? Universal dental care? Well, I guess they got the Liberals to do that in their joint government, and that's not good enough. Not to mention, we've seen through Singh and the party's attempts to cater to racist people. For instance, many years ago, he tweeted that he supports the right for people to support the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, the right to dissent. And then, more recently, he tries to cater to the Zionists and the Zionist lobby. He goes on CJA's podcast, the biggest Israel lobby in the country, and says that the Palestinian-led boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement is not the NDP's way forward. Then he condemned more recently Palestine solidarity protesters, defaming Palestine solidarity protesters, such as when he perpetuated the propaganda that Palestinians were protesting outside of a Jewish hospital, Mount Sinai in Toronto, which is simply false. Palestinians were protesting the Israeli genocide of Palestinians in Gaza, and the Mount Sinai Hospital, which is on University Avenue, a major road that protesters are always held on, as the US consulate is there, and so is the Ontario Parliament at Queen's Park. Singh flips. Once he doesn't want to call what's happening in Palestine a genocide, and he's tweeting support for Israel, and the next second, when he sees it's popular and that he can appeal to people who are upset with the Liberals, he goes and calls what's happening to Gaza a genocide. But it's too late, because you were already spineless, and we saw that you're only tokenizing Palestinians and you're using this issue when it benefits you. But we saw you expel candidates who support Palestine in this leadership race, following what the NDP did in Ontario. But then the federal NDP supporters tried to say, well, that's provincial, that's not federal. But you did the exact same thing. Perhaps not with someone that was already elected, but with someone who was running to be elected under your party. And it's not the first time that you've expelled candidates or prevented people from running for the NDP for their strong support of Palestinian human rights. Also, 2 years ago, when you cowardly condemned Palestinians who are fighting their occupier, which is in line with international human rights and international law, we came to protest you at the NDP convention because we believe that the NDP has the strongest chance of actually listening to the voices of the people and people who believe in justice. Rather than talk to us and communicate with us, you sent in the police, 11 police cars, you sent in the RCMP, and I was tackled so heavily I was injured for multiple months.
A group of pro-Palestinian protesters burst into the Hamilton venue to criticize the party's stance on Israel.
There can be no justification for the torture, murder, and sexual violence committed by Hamas.
But as Singh spoke, around 24 pro-Palestinian protesters forced their way towards the main ballroom, demanding New Democrats speak out against what they call Israeli human rights violations.
So they need to recognize that Israel is an apartheid state.
The NDP's position is far too weak. The NDP must stand against the genocide of the Palestinian people who have had a noose around their neck for decades.
The party swiftly suspended the passes of 4 delegates.
I'm a delegate. You cannot take my delegate president.
For violating the NDP anti-harassment policy.
Folks storming in makes people feel unsafe. That's not the way we do things.
You, rather than listening to people who are tremendously upset from the injustice that their people are facing back home, you sent in the police to tackle Palestinians here, rather than listening to us. How do you think that reflects on you? And how do you think we will ever believe that you actually care about the ongoing genocide that is happening at the hands of the government that you are uplifting and continue to uphold? Many of your other MPs proved to be performative. Matthew Green, who I highly believed in, performative, as with many MPs. And Heather McPherson, who likes to wear her watermelon pin now that it became popular, we saw before her statements supporting Israel, and she was one of the first NDP members who went and condemned our group protesting the NDP statement supporting the Zionist entity. I want to talk about the provincial NDP in Ontario. They allowed and even voted in favor of the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, which conflates criticism of the state of Israel with anti-Semitism. The BC NDP education minister said that Palestine is a crappy piece of land. Yes, she resigned after public outrage, but it's abysmal that the NDP allows such people not only to be members of the party, but to reach the position of minister while you expel candidates for speaking in support of international law. But just because that applies to Palestinians, then you expel them. And don't think that the provincial NDP doesn't affect you, because this is often a claim that's made. They try to differentiate the federal from the NDP. The provincial NDP, what they do, they hold your name and they affect you. And when they have terrible actions or policies, these reflect onto you and you need to speak up, manage what the provincial NDP does. Ultimately, Jagmeet, you did not lose because of Carney. You did not lose because of Poilievre, nor did you lose because of Trump. You lost because you're a coward. The NDP is a cowardly party, and it gave nothing for people to vote for it. The NDP under Jagmeet Singh, and before him Thomas Mulcair, was turned into a liberal and at times conservative party. You wouldn't even take a stance, Jagmeet, on Quebec's racist Bill 21 that would have even banned you from living there yourself and working with your turban, just like it bans other people of religious minorities, such as women who wear the hijab, from being able to work in the public service. Even the white man, Justin Trudeau, said he'd keep the door open to prevent this bill potentially from passing, though he didn't, but at least he said potentially he would. But you, who would be directly impacted by this bill, whose party should be catering to people who are most suffering from injustice and who are most craving justice, that is your base. That is your base to cater to. Why are you trying to appeal to racist people and saying you wouldn't bother interfering with this bill just because you're so desperate for votes from Quebec. Well, guess what? They're not going to vote for you. You didn't get their votes, and you lost the vote of your own base. A lesson for the NDP moving forward. It's very simple. You're a leftist party, quote unquote. So embrace the left. Be leftist. Be a true alternative to the existing center-right parties. And cater to your base. It's so simple. You must be staunchly anti-Zionist and anti-imperialist. All the other parties are Zionist. So what do you offer that's different? And you cannot be anti-imperialist if you support NATO, which bombs Libya and colonizes other states. And you have to support demilitarization. Heather McPherson just went on a radio last week, BBC Radio, saying, we all agree unanimously on the need for more military spending. That is what you're saying for the so-called progressive party. And how do you even care about the environment, about other issues, indigenous rights, when you're here supporting militarization? You are no different than the Liberal Party. And then another thing, don't expel candidates who support Palestine, and you can't be catering to everyone. Again, you are not the Liberal Party. That is the Liberals' game, their place of expertise, to cater to everyone, to be weak and spineless on every issue. And you need to be strong on your values, strong on progressive issues, and cater to your base. And a message to everyone else, not the politicians and not the parties, what do we do moving forward? So now we know we have this government, with Mark Carney, liberal minority government. Cool. Electoral politics isn't the solution. We don't want to be stuck up on it, but we have to find ways to pressure it, to work with it, and influence policies where we can. We need to watch out for the next leadership race that is going to happen in the NDP. We need to campaign in our places of work, schools, places of worship where they like to continue to allow politicians in who support genocide. We need to cut ties with war-complicit companies and institutions, support indigenous groups, organizers, read, share knowledge, brainstorm for new ideas, protest, and keep up the pressure. Ultimately, we have amazing communities across the country, communities that support justice, and we need to continue to build on that, to stand united, and to not engage with Zionists. And we need to protest the vile Zionist media. Now, when we see Zionist media, for example, CP24, in every subway station in Toronto, millions of Torontonians are getting this news as their source every day, pro-Israeli media and content. And we need to protest that and fight for a change in the narrative that is made. And likewise, we need to push in our local governments, in municipalities. Mayor Olivia Chow is not progressive, so we need to make sure that that whole image of hers is totally squashed. And we need to just keep pushing for progressive change. Ultimately, I'm very optimistic. I think we have seen so much progress over the last 2 years in terms of community moving, mobilizing. Different ideas have been created. Students launched encampments last year. There's going to be different ideas that come about. It just needs passion, dedication for justice, creativity, united community. And ultimately, justice will prevail. And how beautiful is it? Pierre Poilievre, the fascist, lost his own seat after over 2 decades of having it once he became the leader of his party. And people across the country heard how vile his ideas are, how atrocious. He wants to deport people who protest in support of Palestinian human rights, for instance. His attacks on women, workers, everything. That is a step in the right direction, and hopefully the NDP also wakes up. They didn't wake up after Thomas Mulcair. They continued down this path. I'm not holding too much hope, but let's try to be optimistic and see how we can influence what is going to happen in this party. And that is my message to you. With so much love and solidarity, Khaled.